Hello, and welcome to the presentation that no one asked for, but everyone's going to enjoy and learn from, called Welcome to the Family Dysfunctional. So, exploring family roles, even their dysfunction within the Disney movie Encanto. If you don't know me, my name is Heather Johnson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and this is interesting and really good information, but it's also just fun for me to do. If you'd like to see videos like this in the future, please let me know. So, this theory of dysfunctional family roles was first identified in the 80s with respect to specifically alcohol abuse in families, with one person being the abuser of alcohol and then the other members kind of filling in. But since then, this has been kind of torn apart into different kind of dysfunctional family systems. So, from someone who has narcissism, or different types of domestic violence, or even just different systems like a cult, or when a child dies, and just how dysfunction can happen in a family. Super fun, right? So, what is a dysfunctional family? So, families are seeking homeostasis or balance. They're always trying to maintain that. That's really important. And so, dysfunctional family happens when one or more members is trying to self-regulate and isn't able to. And so, other members of the family have to kind of step up and support that family member, or either by enabling them or meeting a need that isn't being met by them in a different way to compensate. So they're always trying to rebalance this. And something really important for an abuser to perpetuate this is having some sort of control over a family member. And yeah, we'll get there. Okay, so what does it mean to have family roles? They can be flexible. One person in the family may take on more than one role. If you look at this presentation and look at your own family, you might go, I think I have a little bit of that, but some of this, that's totally normal. That happens a lot where you identify with more than one. And there also can be one or more abusers. There can be someone who's abusing a substance and someone else who may be struggling a different way. And even if parents are very well-meaning, all parents are, right? Well, for the most part, it's very, very difficult to not perpetuate the experiences of their own childhood and keep cycles going, which is how we get intergenerational trauma. So in this family, we'll see we've got grandparents, we've got kids, and then we've got their kids. So this is already, we've got 3 generations here, and who knows how many were happening before it. And if this pattern were able to continue, how many might have come after. So why this movie? Because it's relevant, it's cute, it's recent, and they're excellent examples of family dysfunction and the ability for family restoration because we have Mirabelle, which we'll learn. Obviously, we know her role if you've seen the movie. Okay, so within this family, we've got Alma and Pedro, and they have Pepa and Julieta. Now, Felix and Augustin, they married in, so they're not as involved in the family structure, so we won't talk about them because they kind of married into the dysfunctional family. And then, of course, there's poor Bruno. Poor Bruno, who does not have grandkids, but then we have the children, Antonio, Dolores, Camilo, Mirabel, Isabella, and Luisa. Okay, so the first family role is Dolores. Dolores can be seen as the lost child. So the lost child attempts to blend into the background. They don't want to rock the boat. They can be ignored, feel neglected. Parents may use them to try to show how good that they're doing and exemplify, like, oh, look how quiet they are, how good they are, or what they're able to do to serve, because this again maintains this image. That's very important. Upholding an image is very important. So they have difficulty developing social skills, and as an adult can struggle with, I don't know if you can see it, but friendships and romantic relationships, which we know for Dolores is a problem. She's literally the ears for the family. She keeps a pulse on the needs. She puts her sister's happiness and relationship above her own feelings and her desire for whatever that guy's name was. And she's beautiful and loving the village. So she's added to the image by just kind of fitting in, but into the background. Okay, Julieta is the mother, right? So she is the daughter of Abuela. And she kind of enables Abuela. She wants to maintain homeostasis, and by doing so, there are times that she's perpetuating the cycle of abuse by actually enabling Abuela. She does this. She kind of defends Abuela's actions to Mirabel, and she's literally the healer. So how the caretaker and enabler stay in business in a sense is by maintaining the pattern, and they're fixers. If you follow the Enneagram, these are the twos. These are the ones that if there's a problem, they are there to solve it. Well, if there isn't a problem, then there's nothing to fix. And if she's the healer, then she's got to have something to fix. So there has to be a problem to fix. So she kind of operates out of the dysfunction of Abuela. Isabella is the golden child. This role is often seen with narcissism. All the parent loves about themselves, the best parts of the family. She is the face. She is what people want to see. She's the favorite, but she can struggle with being her own self. She can even participate in the abuse of others to protect themselves. And they can struggle with like abuse from the parent being seen as love for them. And may even disobey. So she's loved by the family. She's kind of on display. She has difficulty accepting herself and finding her own way. Originally, when she rebels and gets all like color crazy, it's horrifying to the family. It's showing that there's something wrong. And so obviously people that want to maintain that dysfunctional system don't like it. And then she's cruel to Mirabel. So that's another way that she's showing that, like, look, Abuela, like, gosh, how can she not fit in? It's perpetuating her role. Luisa, everyone loves Luisa. A lot of people related to Luisa, right? In a family, she is the caretaker. This is also similar to the hero. She's keeping everyone in the family happy, even if it means denying the real issues at hand. They act out of anxiety that the family will fall apart without what they are contributing. So they can be parentified and take on the role of a spouse if there isn't a spouse. So in this could be like her taking on the role of the grandfather that wasn't there. But she's important to the family as her image, what she serves, what she's able to do for them. They are drawn to relationships where their partner is unavailable, or they struggle with their own intimacy. So Luisa's literally the work mule. She avoids intimacy. Emotions and feeling felt like failure to her because that's not her role. Her role is to be strong and to be that base for the family. So any weakness she's internalizing as failure. Okay, Abuela is interesting. So Abuela is the victim, but then she becomes an abuser, right? So she's experienced her own traumas that have led to her now when someone doesn't break this cycle, it can be perpetuated, which is how she can become the abuser. So she also demonstrates this role, which is kind of sometimes called the writer. So they kind of achieve that homeostasis by being right. So they judge the right and wrong, intense feelings of having to be control, right, superior. They don't want to be seen as insecure or in any fault. So they hold being right, upholding traditions, upholding what they know to be true, rather than kind of checking and engaging with what the family needs or with the emotional pulses. So her tragedy with her husband creates a need for this control in the family. She's more interested in maintaining the flame of the candle than of what's best for every member in the family, including Mirabel. She's very critical. Mirabel shows that flaw, that chink in the armor, and she's not cool with that. And saying that's the same with Bruno. Any suggestion the family may be showing signs of weakness, if it feels like a link to her inadequacies, it's going against what she believes her husband wanted her to do. So she's not comfortable being vulnerable, and she's just wants to maintain the pattern. Camilo, adorable Camilo, he is the clown or mascot. So these use humor and goofiness to distract from the serious issues. They may even feel that pressure. I have to be goofy. I have to be silly. I have to diffuse the intensity of the family trauma and crisis. So they act from a place of anxiety and trauma. They may experience bouts of depression because, as we know in society, Comedians are often struggle with depression. It can be very hard for them to feel like they fit in. And it's also usually the youngest member of the family. Go figure. Although we do have little Antonio. But they provide comic relief. They're a joy, but they are learning that like their role is just to kind of be goofy and can struggle with taking themselves seriously. So he recreates others' personality traits. He doesn't have a good sense of self. Obviously, he's the one that if I was going to sit down and anticipate who I'd be seeing in therapy first, obviously, well, I guess Bruno, but Camilo is someone who's probably going to need therapy because they're not going to have a great sense of identity about who they are as themselves, and they're going to deflect their own emotions with humor because that's what they've been learned is normalized, what is accepted, what is good. Okay, so Bruno is our scapegoat. The scapegoat is cast aside and blamed for problems that may have nothing to do with them. They are where the blame goes. They're very aware of their role. Other members of the family may be aware. Sometimes they're called the black sheep. If something goes wrong, we kind of throw it to the scapegoat. Uh, they can feel very unloved and isolated because of this. How this can show in a family is that a child may be conditioned to understand that negative attention is better than no attention. So they might be kind of a troublemaker. But they also may just experience harsher abuse. So it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to be blamed for it. So he's ostracized for his gift. We don't talk about Bruno. We're told about all these situations that happened. And because he forecasted it, he's blamed for it. And aware of his role and the being the scapegoat, he takes to hiding. He accepts even faults for his gift, even though he says, like I was just saying it like it was, like I was seeing, I was just playing out my gift, but I knew that I was upsetting people, and so rather than trust my own emotions and my family accept that, I just chose to leave. He probably got into trouble a lot as a child and was like the butt of the joke or considered the black sheep far beyond before this movie took place. Okay, so Peppa doesn't have like a specific role, I think as obvious as the other ones, but I think she's a great representation of just gaslighting. She oftentimes people that are gaslit are the recipient of a narcissist behavior, which plays into kind of the writer of Abuela. They're told that their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions are wrong. They are invalidated. You're acting crazy, putting on a scene. This is ridiculous. You need to calm down, right? Those magical words that have never calmed down anyone who is anxious in the history of ever. They want to deflect the negative attention from the abuser, so they may put it on someone else. And in this case, Peppa is probably the harshest to Bruno in that song, and obviously has a problem with him. Her entire role is kind of told, quit your emotions. You're not allowed to be sad. You're not allowed to feel things unless they're happy and good, and perpetuate this image. So obviously she'd probably end up in therapy too. Very traumatic. And here we have Mirabelle. Thankfully, we have a cycle breaker. So, cycle of abuse, in order to break it, we need a cycle breaker. They are rare. They don't always happen, which is how we have intergenerational trauma and how cycles are maintained. But occasionally we can get one. And she's a great example. She stands apart by saying, hey, I'm acknowledging what's happening. I don't like it, and I'm going to find a way to change it. And while she tries so hard to fit in, and she's maintaining this cycle, when she realizes she can't, then she tries to work at what's happening, and how can I find my role. And so as she looks for understanding, she's disrupting this imprint. She's disrupting this homeostasis. Obviously, that's going to upset the people that want to maintain the cycle, which includes Abuela, right? So she is like the main target of Abuela. Now that, Bruno's out of the picture, she's the target of Abuela's harshest criticism because she's trying to challenge that cycle. She also calls out the unfair treatment of Bruno. She is working to find her place, and her family members coming alongside her and choosing to say, no, we stand with Mirabelle, is how this cycle is broken. If she just stood out and said, I see problems with it, she'd be cast aside and she'd have a very different role. But because her family says, no, we agree, this isn't healthy, this cycle is actually be able to ideally be maintained in a new form. Okay, Antonio, we just didn't get a lot of him. He wasn't like a major character, so I this is kind of a guess, but he may be a peacekeeper. So he's adorable and cute. And the biggest thing about peacekeepers is they are people pleasers and they want to maintain the homeostasis by just placating and seeing what other people want. So they're kind of covering over the problems, almost similarly to a clown of like distracting. They just want to people please and kind of maintain the front. And he's adorable and charming. And so we are all, oohing and awing over his adorableness. But it's not fixing the problem, it's just putting another mask up. So those are the main roles that we see in Encanto. The moral of the story, obviously, there's a lot of great examples of dysfunction, but there is hope. The moral is no family is perfect, not without trauma. Cycles can take generations to break. This is a cycle that has been going on at least, from the grandparents, but who knows what Abuela's parents and from there. Obviously, they were probably living in poverty and trying to escape that. So it is possible. It may take generations, it may take time, but it is possible. And thankfully, we have a great example of how to do that in Mirabel. Those are just some resources. Thanks for stopping by and checking it out. And if you want more resources or if you wanted to see a similar presentation to like this on a different topic, this was super fun for me to make. So let me know. That's my website. Okay, thanks.